Hi everybody and welcome to today's ISE webinar on what is National Apprentice Week. Really important webinar we got today. Really pleased to be bringing this to you with the team from Connectr. And the subject for today's webinar is building the future for the apprentices of tomorrow. It's one of the areas when we talk to our members, a lot of people are telling us about the challenges they've got in the apprentice school leaver markets at the moment, but also very much this eye to the future. So we'll be covering quite a lot of ground on that today. So we've got a really good set of panelists. We've got plenty of employers on the call as well. So you're going to get lots of insights from people who are actually in the thick of it at the moment. Very shortly, I'm going to hand over to Simon, but if this is your first ISE webinar, just a little bit of a rundown on how they work. We've got a presentation from Simon, then we're going to have a panel discussion with our panelists who Simon's going to introduce. We will then take questions from yourselves who are tuned into this webinar. Please use the questions box on the platform. I will be keeping an eye on that. I'll remind you as we go through. Pop your question into there. I will then come back on and feed it to the panelists at the end. When you're asking that question, if you could do me a favour and keep it concise, because sometimes it's quite hard to get to the number of a question when I've got lots of text to wade through. But also let us know if there's anybody in particular that you've got the question you're asking to, or if it's the entire panel that you'd like to answer it. So if you could do that, would be a favour. The other thing to say is we are recording this, so if there's anything that you miss and want to recap, you can do, or if you want to share it amongst the rest of your team, then please do that as well. It's very important that we get the key messages out to as wider audience as possible. So that's enough for me. Welcome all to the webinar. Time to hand over to Simon. Do you want to take it away from here, Simon?
Brilliant, Stephen. Thank you very much, and great to be back engaging with the ISE again, Stephen. So thanks for having us. So if we could bring up the slide, so we can get started. Brilliant. Okay, so if we can move to the next slide, please, Stephen. Fantastic. So welcome everybody. Yeah, so I'm Simon. I'm the strategic lead for talent here at Connectr. Connectr, we are a technology business that's support underrepresented talent get into work and underrepresented talent progress when in work. And a key part of how we do that is through the power of mentoring and using technology as an enabler of that. I'm also the deputy chair of the Apprentice Diversity Champions Network, and I mention that because I'm going to be sharing some data and a report that we published on Tuesday of this week. I'm to be delighted, as Stephen said, to be joined by a number of subject matter experts. My colleague Kate, who's our head of talent acquisition, she's going to be sharing some insights into the lived experience of young people. And then we've got Salma, Amelia and Kathryn, who are going to be our panelists today, and will be sharing some of their experiences and insights and some of the things that they've been doing to respond to what's going on in the apprenticeship market at the moment. So that's the plan, the agenda. I'm going to talk a bit about the landscape, then Kate, then the employer panel, and then as Stephen said, a Q&A, and then Stephen and I will then do a quick summary insights and we'll be done. So next slide, please, Stephen. So I've mentioned who we are at Connectr. I'm not going to cover off that again. We work with lots of companies across lots of different industries, and our big focus is supporting organisations to build a sense of belonging and inclusion with their people. So next slide, please, Stephen. So the apprenticeship landscape, there's a couple of things I'm going to share with you, just as a little bit of context really. First is some really great data from the ISE that some of you may already have accessed, but I think paints a really clear picture of what's going on in the apprenticeship space at the moment. And then I've got some insights from the work I've been doing over the last year with the Apprentice Diversity Champions Network, which is a government-run body which does exactly what it says on the tin, champion diversity through apprenticeships. So next slide, Stephen. So I think one of the things that we'll all be very aware of is that it is in a very, very short period of time, it has become an incredibly tight candidate market, and you know, significantly more vacancies across the whole of early talent. But I think particularly where it's really coming through is apprenticeship vacancies. And some sectors across the ISE membership are seeing an increase of anything between 30 and 50% more vacancies than last year. And every industry is seeing an increase. So there are more opportunities that firms are offering. But the challenge that the sector is facing is 2/3 of employers are seeing smaller numbers of application numbers. And I know we've got a mix of experience of that from our panelists today. But the biggie really, I think, is the quality. And this is a really scary number that almost all employers are seeing reduced quality. So you've got a real perfect storm for employers here, which is there are more vacancies to fill. A lot of employers are getting fewer applications and the quality isn't there. So that's going to create a real challenge when it comes to hitting those headcount numbers. So next slide, Stephen, please. So what does it tell us? So I think we've got one of the things that we've been reflecting on here at Connectr is we've got to find new ways to support those young people. So the people you've got in your pipeline, what can be done to support them to give you the best chance of maximizing the conversion rates so you then fill all those hires that you've got as an organization. And I think there's a couple of things to consider, and Kate's going to talk about this in a bit more detail. But one of the things we're definitely seeing is individuals, particularly those from underrepresented talent groups, are self-selecting out before they even apply. So thinking, oh, they wouldn't want someone like me. That's not the kind of role that I'd never get through that. It must be really competitive right now. So they just they're not applying. So there's definitely some work that needs to be done there. Providing more support through the process to maximize those conversion rates, so say particularly for diverse talent, I think is hugely important. It's very true in early talent, but I think particularly with young people going through the apprenticeship program, the recruitment processes rather, they're rightly rigorous, but for a lot of them, they won't have a huge amount of experience. So supporting them with whether it's online applications, online tests, assessment centres, video interviews, whatever it happens to be, giving them support in advance to give them the best chance of doing well and setting them up for success has never been more important, I think, and building that sense of belonging so that they feel like they see themselves being a part of your organisation and feeling like they'll fit in and there'll be people there in your organization like them, are all things that are really going to help them apply to get those numbers up, stay with the process, do well through the process, and I guess ultimately and hugely importantly, accept your offer when you make it and turn up on day one. And for us, that needs activity at scale to be able to do that. Trying to put people resources behind making all these, doing all these things and providing all this support is no one just has that level of resource. So the role of technology to do that is absolutely crucial. And I know Salma is going to chat a bit more about this at Vodafone. She's been using our tech to do some of the things that we've been talking about. So those are some of the things that we think can be done to address some of the current challenges. Next slide, please, Stephen. So what I wanted to do is share some data and insights from my work with the Apprentice Diversity Champions Network. And a couple of things have come through really clearly from a data perspective. There's still really small quantities of individuals from minority groups applying to apprenticeships. 14%, it's really low, so there's definitely work that we've all got to do to address that. Then there are issues for those organizations looking to recruit into STEM roles. Again, the percentage of women in STEM roles on apprenticeships, again, is incredibly low. So again, it really shows that more work needs to be done. Then you've obviously got, learning difficulties and disabilities. There's not a huge amount of data on this, but it's estimated to be about 20% of the apprentice population have a learning difficulty or a disability. So again, work needs to be done to support them through the process, because that's a really significant quantity of the talent pool. And finally, and a really important issue is progression. and there's a massive lack of data when it comes to progression, not just for apprenticeships, but actually for all aspects of all hiring level. When we're looking at diverse talent, there's just a real lack of data to evidence the speed of progression for different underrepresented talent groups. So this is some of the data that we're seeing at ADCN, and importantly, some of the things that we're looking to focus on to try and support organisations who are seeking to recruit diverse apprentices onto their programs. We've been doing a lot of work to, one, understand the current situation, and then look at what can be done around it. Next slide, please, Stephen. And what we've done, so literally on Tuesday, we published the annual report from the ADCN, which shares lots of case studies and what firms are doing to address this. And both Kathryn's organisation and Amelia's are part of ADCN. So they've been part of this journey that we've been on as an organisation to provide that. So I would encourage you to access and download that report, because there's some really, really good examples of what firms are doing and the success they're having, trying to address some of the challenges that we face when it comes to diversity through apprenticeship. So hopefully some reading after today, but we'll give you some ideas about what you can do. So I'm going to, next slide, please, Stephen. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague, Kate, who heads up our talent acquisition at Connectr. She's been working with us for a lot of years and has managed the attraction and recruitment processes for huge numbers of apprenticeship programs. So it's got some incredible and really powerful insights, and both manages those programs, but also lives at the coalface and is talking to apprentices every single day. So she's got some really great insights to offer. So Kate, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Simon. And I apologise for my flickery camera. I'm not really bobbing up and down in real life. It is a first, it hasn't happened before. So yes, I'm Kate, and I'm Head of Talent Acquisition at Connectr. I think we would all agree that the world has changed in ways that we couldn't have imagined as little as 2 years ago. In fact, it's probably almost exactly 2 years now. And arguably, we are in a once-in-a-lifetime situation. COVID-19 has caused a global pandemic and the biggest public health crisis that we have experienced since the Second World War. And that's going to have a long-lasting impact on society at large, from the economy to employment to the way we interact. So it's hardly surprising that we're all looking to understand how this has impacted on young people and their views of their future. And of course, it seems that this has become more acute given the perhaps unexpected growth of apprenticeship opportunities in all sectors, as outlined by Simon. So I think engaging with young people for apprenticeship programs can be tricky at the best of times. It's a bit like the Wild West out there for all groups. There are thousands of schools, so it can be difficult as an employer to know where to start. There is still a lack of awareness and misunderstanding about apprenticeships. People aren't aware of the breadth of opportunities available. The application process can be difficult for young people to navigate. You know, the university application process is set in stone, whereas the timing and structure of apprenticeship programs can be confusing for young people, parents and schools alike. So in essence, the attraction landscape for apprenticeships is nowhere near as mature as that for university students and graduates. And to compound this further, insight published by UCAS indicates that over half of students looking to apply for higher education in 2022 are interested in apprenticeships, but confirm that they find it difficult to access the relevant information that they need to make informed decisions. On top of this, we now have a generation of young people who have had their lives quite simply turned upside down by the pandemic. Almost every young person has had to adjust to dramatic changes. They have missed out on so much as a result of the pandemic. And judging by the conversations that I've been having with school leavers, they aren't feeling great about their next steps in 2022. They recognise that they are lacking in both knowledge and understanding of themselves, and practical skills that they know employers expect to see. so for them, they see an uncertain future. Their education has been massively disrupted, as have their opportunities to gain work experience, but they have lost so much more than that. They have become nervous and listless and have spent so much time online that they have almost forgotten how to relate in person. We are expecting to see a trend for young people to stay in education for longer, partly, and I've had it said to me on numerous occasions, because their belief is that there aren't any jobs out there anyway, or any jobs out there that would be suitable for me. And in support of this, The Economist identifies that more 16-year-olds are staying on at schools and sixth form colleges, although they do attribute this to the grade inflation at GCSE. Only 65,000 under-19s started apprenticeships in the 2020-21 academic year, down a third since 2018-19. This change, like so many others, is likely to stick. Luke Sivietta of the Institute for Fiscal Studies, another think tank, says that participation tends to rise during recessions and not fall back afterwards. So, teenagers are doing less of the things that made teenagers in the past feel adult, such as leaving school, going on holiday, having sex, and working. The pandemic appears to have stretched childhood. How should employers react, and how can they set young people up with the confidence, insight, and skills that they need to join an apprenticeship programme? First of all, I believe employers must be patient. The recruitment cycle isn't as predictable as it used to be, and students are not as prepared, and that isn't unreasonable on their part. Focus on quality, not quantity. Don't judge engagement, whether that's application numbers or attendance at events, by volume. If only 10 people come to your event, but those people find it really useful, they'll tell their network. It's important to recalibrate your application process too, particularly if your apprenticeship programme is viewed as a solution to increase diversity and support social mobility. Research suggests that young people from minority groups have been hardest hit by the pandemic. Reassure students that you realise they won't have the level of experience they might have needed in the past. Remember that students might not understand their strengths as well as past cohorts did, and allow them to answer competency questions with the skills that they think are important, rather than those that they've actually been able to acquire in a work setting. On top of this, I think employers will also need to be patient with Generation Z's adjustment to the professional world, and a greater focus on intergenerational mentoring and support, and rethinking orientation programmes can help this. Some companies are already developing new roles within HR for this specific purpose. But post-pandemic or no post-pandemic, surely the above should be at the core of any apprenticeship hiring strategy, particularly where D&I and social mobility are a part of that strategy. So how can we go about restoring connections? Technology will be key. The early talent job market is different now, so employers must be different too. To stand out, you need to support your candidates, understand the experience they've lived through, change up what you've offered previously. Technology will be key in restoring these connections. It can offer an engaged, supported candidate journey, but also one that's dynamic and always accessible. Thank you.
Sorry, I'd forgotten I'd muted myself. Thank you, Kate, for those really great and pretty powerful insights, I think, into what you are into what you're seeing. So, Stephen, can we move to the next slide, please? So these slides will be shared afterwards, and this is a summary of the things that Kate's been talking about. To save you scribbling stuff down as she was chatting. So next slide, Stephen. Right, so we've got three fantastic employers that we're going to hear from. I'm just going to very quickly ask each of them to introduce themselves, and can you work from left to right on the screen, not as you're pictured, but as your name is featured. So Salma, if you want to kick off, just a quick intro, then Amelia, then Kathryn, and then we'll go into the questions.
Thank you, Simon. Hi, everyone. I'm Salma Steadman, Future Talent Manager at Vodafone, and I look after the recruitment and attraction for both graduates and apprentices.
Hi everyone, delighted to be on the call. I'm Amelia Donaldson and I look after early careers attraction at Siemens.
Hello everyone, my name's Kathryn Marshall and I lead on the apprenticeship activity at Lloyds Banking Group. So the whole end-to-end process, attraction, recruitment, on-programme activity, all the way through to celebrating their achievements at the end after their endpoint assessments. And as Simon said, also a member of the Diversity Champions Network.
Brilliant, thank you all. So Stephen, let's move to the next slide on our first question, please. So, what are the key challenges that employers have faced over the last 2 years when it comes to engaging, attracting and engaging future apprentices? Salma, do you want to kick off with that one?
Yeah, sure, thank you. So I know for us here at Vodafone, we've certainly seen a few challenges in the last couple of years, particularly because our apprenticeship programme is level 6, so is that degree equivalent, and I guess, you know, an alternative option to university. So we are then competing with students that are applying to university as well. So we do have that challenge around convincing students, teachers, parents, that, you know, and a degree level apprenticeship is a viable option for their children and their students when they finish education, because there is still some stigma attached there for sure, but we're slowly turning that around. So we do a lot of peer-to-peer engagement through events and through using Connectr, and we also do a number of focused events with influencers as well, just to really help them understand the opportunities that we have available and actually what that means as an alternative.
Brilliant. Amelia, what about for you guys, some of the key challenges that you've faced at Siemens?
Sure. Where do I start? I've been working in early careers for about 20 years and I definitely find graduate and intern attraction a lot easier. I think with apprenticeships, I mean, it's such a complicated talent ecosystem. You know, you're having to align with your internal stakeholders, with the schools, you know, as well as your own team. So pulling all that together is quite challenging. Unlike graduates, it's much more, you know, you follow a much more local strategy and you're building really good relationships with local offices as well to deliver a lot of the strategy. So I think your soft skills as well as your strategic skills are really important in actually getting results. I think on the school side, it's really important to make sure that you're in there with their timetable and that they're available, and you know, providing things like pre-recorded videos and really listening to them to see what they can actually use. So it can be a challenge if you go ahead and get really excited about producing a really, you know, like an hour-long activity, and the teacher might say, well, actually, it doesn't really align with our curriculum. We don't have time to do it. So make sure that you listen a lot and ask for feedback. And then finally, I'd say hiring managers. We have had some challenges there at Siemens in terms of getting them to raise roles in time, really educating them to understand why we need to go out, when we need to go out. And I think last year we did lose a lot of talent because we went out a bit too late.
Yeah, Amelia, number of challenges there, but good to hear how you're dealing with them. Kathryn, how about for you guys at Lloyds Banking Group?
Yeah, definitely. So if I think back over the last couple of years, and obviously when the pandemic first hit, then we needed to very, very quickly pivot to doing fully virtual assessment centres. So the process that we take in terms of our higher apprenticeship recruitment, we were doing online tests, we were doing the video interview, but we did have a face-to-face assessment centre. So that had to very quickly change into a virtual assessment centre. And I guess now as we've had the opportunity to embed that, we can now make a much more informed decision about what our approach is going forward. And the feedback generally is very positive from delivering those virtual assessment centres. There's still the opportunity to touch base and meet our current apprentices and the different hiring managers and really get that flavour for the organisation. Simon, you talked about that sense of belonging, and we can still get that across in our virtual assessment centre. So now, as we're hopefully coming through, it's making those informed decisions about actually what's our choice, what's our purpose going forward, and do we want to stick with virtual because that is working, or actually do we introduce some face-to-face? I think the other thing I would just call out as well, we're probably seeing a change in dynamic in terms of the populations applying for our apprenticeship programmes. Our approach is that apprenticeships are for everyone. I think our oldest apprentice is 61, and we're probably seeing more graduates applying for the programmes now, and probably graduates who've also got a couple of years work experience under their belt as well. So that's definitely something that's changed and is making us mindful of really targeting the school leaver population.
Yeah, really interesting about the changing profile of applicants, and I think supports the point that Kate, you were making earlier about, you know, the things are changing and we need to change with it, and we need to adapt to what's going on. Thank you. Stephen, if we could have the next slide for the next question, please. So we all know the importance of the candidate journey and you know, delivering a really great journey for our candidates, and we touched a little bit about using technology to restore that connection. So I'd be keen to hear from the panelists around the activities that they've implemented so a couple of things that they've done to deliver a really great candidate journey. And let's start with you, Amelia.
Sure. So we've been working with our schools and education team to deliver virtual work experience in year 10, to do brand building, make sure that we're really investing in that long-term journey. The talent team have set up like a fast-track talent pool from August, and we're finding that we're getting the talent in and then we're able to engage with them and invite them to events before the hiring managers can actually raise the roles in December. So we have run a couple of webinars this year. We've worked with Rate My Apprenticeship, we've worked with young professionals, we've done female-only webinars, and we've also done like a Siemens Mobility Learn About the Business type webinar. We've also done taken part in parent-only panels as well. We've also found paid socials been really, really good. Not just for the students but for the parents as well. And actually my colleague Charlotte has this amazing video. She's actually an apprentice herself, and she talks to her mum about why she decided to do an apprentice. She was a straight A student and her mum talks about the concerns, and it's just the results that we get from that engagement from that video have just been amazing. Something we've just tried is user generated content amongst apprentices, which hasn't actually worked. We find our grad and interns are desperate to do user generated content for us, but our apprentices just seem to be too shy despite monetary incentives. So that's been quite a good observation that some of you might be interested in. Yeah, so that's just a few things.
A number of really good things, Amelia, that you're doing. What about Salma? What about you guys at Vodafone?
Sorry, I realised there's a mute there. I was just saying, we do actually lots of similar things to Amelia's doing at Siemens with the events and the trying to get the user generated content. Similarly, seeing less of an uptake with our apprentices. And we've moved to a kind of wholly virtual process in the last 2 years as well, which we are continuing to do this year. So I guess in addition to that is obviously, as you said, Simon, we do use the Connectr platform, and that's been really a really great tool actually, just in regards to that engagement that then the applicants can have with our current apprentices. So they don't have to wait to the assessment centre stage to meet with them. They don't have to sign up to the events. They can speak to them at any point in the day, you know, send them messages, and those apprentices mentors will reply back to them. And we've made sure that we've got apprentices from every single programme represented on Connectr, so there is someone for them to speak to about the opportunities that we have available as well. So I think really it's been great to kind of use technology in that way to create that connection where obviously that face-to-face element has stopped or been very intermittent for applicants. So I know for us particularly kind of using the Connectr tool, we have seen some great engagement. So since we've been using the tool, we've had nearly 3,500 users engage with us on the tool, and particularly kind of around some of the demographic elements in terms of those users. Around 53% of them are kind of non-white or identify as non-white users, and particularly given that we're technology and a lot of, well, pretty much all of our apprentice opportunities are tech-based, 45% of those users are female, which is really important that we're engaging with that female population, because we know that's a struggle within the STEM environment. So yeah, we've seen some great engagement through the use of technology, and obviously particularly with the Connectr platform there. Fantastic.
Salma, thank you. Kathryn.
Yes, I'll share a couple of examples. So a bit similar to what's already been shared, we introduced our virtual work experience last year. So previously to that, we partnered with a number of different schools and colleges across the country and did face-to-face work experience. But the real benefit, I think, of being able to deliver virtual work experience is that you break down any geographical barriers that might be there. So you don't have to be in a significant town or city. You could be in a coastal town, wherever, and you can still access that virtual work experience and get that really valuable input. So that's one thing that we've done. And then the other thing I'll share is actually as part of our onboarding and induction. So we were very conscious with everybody working at home that when somebody joins us as an apprentice and they might be wandering from their bedroom down to the dining room or wherever it might be, and their first interaction with somebody from Lloyds banking group is when they knock on the door and deliver their laptop. We wanted to make sure that there's a really great experience for them to have that opportunity to network and connect and really build contacts going forward and even friends going forward. So using gamification, we introduced our business challenge, which was to set up teams, looking at setting up a cafe, so deciding what coffee they were going to sell, what their branding was, their customer service strategy. And the feedback that we got from that was really brilliant in terms of their opportunity to build up some skills that are absolutely relevant to their apprenticeship, like problem solving, team working, analysis, but most importantly, to have that opportunity to network and to build those contacts, which you don't get so much when you're working at home.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point about those contacts and those relationships, whether it's through gamification and an activity like that, whether it's being able to connect with existing apprentices, ability for them to make those connections, and obviously leverage technology to do it is great. Brilliant. Stephen, can we have the next question, please? So, as always, impact. What impact have you seen? So, Kathryn, do you want to start by sharing just a couple of the areas that you've seen real impact from some of these changes that you've made? You've touched on a little bit already.
Yeah, certainly. So in terms of the business cafe challenge, so we've run that now for 3 different cohorts, and as I said, we look at the evaluation for that and the skills that we're building up, but I think for me fundamentally where that has proven a success is where everyone has fed back and said that they feel that sense of belonging that you referenced, Simon. They feel part of a team. They feel like they've got contacts, and that is just so important. So that's definitely the positive impact that we've seen from that.
Brilliant.
And I think from the virtual work experience, again, it's just that opportunity. You know, we've seen school students preparing presentations with people from different schools. So that opportunity to really go away from that event and have that confidence to say, you know, this is something that I have done, and focus on understanding themselves a little bit more and what they want to get out of their next steps as well.
Brilliant. Yeah, lots of really good impact there. Amelia, and then Salma.
Sure. We've definitely seen some great gender results. Our female hires are definitely well above the industry average. It's definitely been worth putting in that effort to reach out to females. Also, the feedback that we're getting from our apprenticeships is really positive when they join. They've been experiencing get-togethers in offices. You know, obviously it's been virtual. Don't know what it's going to be like in the summer, but we're finding that they are more sort of like day one equipped by the time they join us.
Fantastic. Yeah, and that being day one equipped is so important, isn't it? So yeah, great that you're seeing that results. And Salma, you've talked a little bit about some of the impact that you've been seeing in terms of their really high engagement levels from some of the key diversity groups for you. Anything else any other areas of impact you've seen with the changes?
Yeah, I think in addition to obviously the engagement we've had on the platform, I think that's helped once they come into the process. Whilst there's been a drop in applications and things like that, actually we do see that engagement being maintained throughout, from the moment they apply to kind of getting to an assessment centre with us, and ultimately kind of anyone that we're offering out to. We haven't seen the same challenge, certainly with apprentices, when it comes to accepting the offers with us. And I think it's great that once we kind of get them in the process, they remain engaged with us as a potential employer.
Yeah. So it's that ongoing engagement, isn't it? By doing those things. Brilliant. Okay, thank you, Stephen. Can we have the next slide, please? And the next question. So this is an area that I know more and more organisations are focusing on, which is about nurturing their incoming apprentices between that kind of yes to desk. So from the moment they say yes to your offer to when they land on or day one, so pre-boarding, yes to desk, however you want to describe it. And a few of you have touched on this a bit already, but is there anything else you'd like to just draw out that you've done to support that? So Kathryn.
Yes, yeah. So again, using technology, we've introduced an online onboarding site. So once somebody has accepted their offer, they get access to this onboarding site. It's giving them a bit more of a flavour of us as an organisation, the kind of things to expect. It's got some hints and tips from our previous apprentices and some videos that they've recorded. And we tend to ask our previous cohorts and say, once you've started, looking back, what would you have really loved to have known? So we keep it current and keep adding that in. I think we've referenced a lot about technology, and it's brilliant to use that, but I think also it is that important human element. So making sure you've got that connection with your line manager and you're building up that relationship, but you've also got access to a buddy, so one of our existing apprentices, so something that you might potentially feel uncomfortable asking your line manager about, but you're more comfortable asking somebody who's recently gone through that experience as well.
Yeah, you make such a good point about making sure that you use technology to still be very human and to humanize, and not kind of use it as a way to not. So yeah, I think that's a great point.
Yes, exactly.
Salma.
Yeah, so we do really similar things here at Vodafone from the sounds of it. So yeah, kind of connecting that cohort together, obviously virtually at the moment. We'll run various events with them, kind of keep warm activities from the moment they're offered with us to their start date. Again, we'll set them up with their line managers so they can have conversations with them, meet the team. We also set them up with a buddy, so another apprentice who's going through the programme that's a little bit further down the line, but obviously someone there for them to speak to and I guess really kind of understand what it's like to go through the apprenticeship programme with us. And then I think the other thing is, when they start, they have quite a robust induction with us, and that's really to help prepare them for that transition from going from campus into a corporate environment, and helping them with that and have the confidence to feel comfortable coming into that environment as well.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. We make all kinds of assumptions about what they should and shouldn't know, and behaviours that you might expect them to have, and how important it is not to make those assumptions. Amelia.
Yeah, we're going through an exercise at the moment where we're reaching out to our current apprentices and we're finding out what they found useful about the pre-boarding Keep Warm website that we set up last year, so we can make sure they've got the information that they need for September. We do find location information is particularly important for this age group. Occasionally we get people dropping out quite last minute saying, I didn't realise that's where the office was. So I think the more engagement you can do on that local level, the better. With just getting them more engaged, as you said. Yeah, buddies, fantastic. I think if you can do welcome gifts, that makes them feel really special. Yeah, just to name a few, but yeah, just to agree with what everyone else has said.
Yeah, and that's a really important theme, isn't it? I think about not making assumptions that of course they know what office they're coming into, or of course they should know those things, and just being really wary of those assumptions.
But I think also reaching out, keeping the parents warm as well is really important, because you might find it's, because we've talked quite a lot about keeping the students warm, but actually the parents might get wobbly. So maybe invite them to some of the events as well and communicate with them in addition to the students.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I know a number of firms have done that as part of that process. So yeah, that's a really good flag. Stephen, next question. I think we're coming towards the end of our panel questions. So, in fact, this is our last question for the panel. So this is the opportunity for our panel just to kind of, I guess, share one or two top tips as to, for organizations who are looking to, really make the most of their apprenticeship strategy. Just one or two top tips that you would share over and above the other, obviously the really useful stuff you've already shared. So let's start with you, Salma. So one or two top tips.
Yeah, I guess kind of for us, our apprenticeship program, all the roles are permanent positions, and actually we kind of are using the program to help develop that future talent pipeline within the organisation. It's not about putting bums on seats, so to speak. So not only do the apprentices have a lot of development in their day-to-day role, we also have a programme put together to help them develop various skills for their future career once they really kind of roll off the apprenticeship programme with us. So for us, it is all about that long-term investment and kind of future-proofing our talent, because we are fortunate that we see the majority of our apprentices kind of stay with us post-programme as well and continue their career with us within Vodafone.
Yeah, so it's that piece around finding ways to one, give them certainty and to make them really clear evidence that you are investing in them for the long term, and
yeah,
that you
absolutely.
see them having a long-term career with them. Brilliant. Amelia.
I think it's really about building long-term relationships with schools and not just having one-off relationships with them. I think that nurturing piece really pays off. I think asking the schools for feedback. I was talking to someone from a school the other day and they said so many employers will send an email with promotional material in and it just goes into the junk mail, and then they might see it, like a couple of weeks later. So I think just keep in regular contact, ask whether what you're producing is working and how we could make things even better to help them and help their students and all the influences around that.
I think that's such a good point. They're a crucial part essentially of your talent supply chain. And you need to kind of treat them like a critical part of your supply chain and engage with them and partner with them and think about it for the long term. I think that's such a great point for them to raise. Analogy I always often talk about, Amelia, with how employers work with schools. Don't treat them like a job centre. That's not their job. Their job is to educate young people. And so if you think about it through that perspective and think about how can I support the school to educate their young people, you're much more likely, and for the long term, you're much more likely to get great outcomes. So I think that's such a good point. And finally, Kathryn.
Yeah, and I think just probably building on Amelia's point there, I think as organisations we could do more about working together and getting that message out to schools. So working with the Ambassador Network, working with ASK, working with Big Assembly and things like that, because schools probably are bombarded by different organisations reaching out to them. So a coordinated effort for the good of apprenticeships, I think, would be really beneficial going forward. And I think my top tip as well was one that you probably stole a moment ago, Amelia, and it's looking at how you do influence the influencers. And this was a learning point that we had actually pre-pandemic, where we had some students who had offers. Their A-level results were better than expected, and their parents then said, well, you don't want to do an apprenticeship, even though it had line of sight to a master's level apprenticeship program. You know, why don't you go to university now that you've done so well at your A-levels? So I think that was just a really great learning point for us around influencing the parents. And if you think about when students and their parents are looking at universities, they go around those together, they do those tours together. So it should be exactly the same when they're looking at the different apprenticeship opportunities and the job opportunities. So the parents also get an understanding of what's it going to be like to work in that organisation. And I'm happy to let my son or daughter apply there.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point about getting them on board, and that education piece, and it's still needed. You know, again, coming back to that risk of making assumptions. You know, we mustn't assume that the whole world realises what a great option apprenticeships are. There's still a huge amount of work to be done. Thank you, Kathryn. I think we're moving towards the end, Stephen. So could we have the next slide, please? Which I think is you and me summing up, I think, Stephen. So if I just do a quick sum up, Stephen, then I'll hand over to you to wrap things up. So I've just been reflecting on all the things and scribbling notes of lots of things that have been shared by our panelists. So firstly, a really big thank you to Kate, to Salma, to Amelia, and to Kathryn for everything that you've shared today, and so honestly shared today about the experience you've had. Some themes I've picked up. One we were just talking about there, in terms of, you know, building long-term relationships with schools. Think about their timetable. Think about, you know, what duration of activity is going to work for them. Definitely came through. Giving your apprentice candidates certainty as much as you can about their future, about the process, about what's going to come at them, setting them up for success, you know, so supporting them through the process. Talent pooling is something else that's been talked about, particularly if you're thinking about your virtual work experience activities or some of the early year engagement that you do in schools, is how you get them into a talent pool that you can stay engaged with. And that talent pool also needs to connect the parents, as we've talked about a few times. Virtual assessment centres are still a thing, and clearly organisations are continuing to use them. The power of peer-to-peer has definitely come across, whether it's videos from an apprentice and their mum talking about their journey, or whether it's you know, apprentices talking about their own experience and what it's like. That's definitely come through. Clearly, the role technology can play, but it needs to be an enabler of a still very human experience, to build that sense of belonging is another theme. And I think the other thing that struck me about that support, and I'm reflecting on one of the experiences for one of our clients who've used technology to provide that support to candidates through the recruitment process. So by giving them those insights, the chance, a bit like Salma, how you're using our Connectr platform, we've got another client using it in the same way, to give them support at each stage of the process, to give them access to existing apprentices in those roles. By providing that support, candidates were 14 times more likely to get to final stage who'd accessed and used that support than those who hadn't. So the difference is massive that it can make when you make that support. And coming back to one of my earlier points about either a lack of applications or poor quality, if you can put that support in place, then in terms of delivering some of the outcomes that you need to deliver on, in terms of hires, that can really make a profound difference. So I hope everyone's found that useful, getting those shares and those insights from what other organisations have done. I know the slides will be made available, and as I said, for those of you who've got a big focus on diversity within your organisation, I would encourage you to download that ADCN report, because there's lots of great insights there, as well as the always powerful and useful ISE data. And on that note, I'll hand back to you, Stephen, after that little plug.
Thanks, Simon. We've also had some questions from the audience that because we're going to have we asked some questions coming through. So I've got some questions to put to yourselves as a panel. So I'll get stuck into those because we've got a few in a short amount of time that's left. So first of all, a question from Paul at Exeter talking about degree apprenticeships, and he makes a comment that Ofsted are increasingly looking for evidence from universities that apprentices are progressing in their careers as a result of being on their programme. And Paul's saying, are there any suggestions from the panellists on thoughts about how you might actually best measure progression through people actually on the programme, and I guess when they come off it as well? Anybody got any thoughts on that?
I mean, I can share something. Just so go, Kathryn. You look, yeah. There's definitely something I can share from some other work I'm doing. But Kathryn, looked like you'd got some thoughts.
Yes, yeah, and certainly one of the universities that we partner with has produced quite a useful impact report. So that's Manchester Metropolitan University, looking at the impact of degree apprenticeships and looking at that progression. So certainly the way that we measure it would be around promotion opportunities. And we definitely see that in terms of increased promotion opportunities for people being through our apprenticeship programmes. But that progression also is what happens afterwards. So as well as in your job, as in terms of the promotion, we do actually see quite a few of our degree apprentices then progress on to the level 7 master's apprenticeship. So it's that progression through the levels as well.
Yeah, and I think the other comment I'd make is the importance of data. Because the other thing it's really important to measure is the progression of different talent groups on your apprenticeships to make sure that it's fair and it's equitable and so on. So data is really important that you have. And then just as Kathryn said, that measuring of, who progresses at what speed and always looking at the diversity data around that to make sure that it's fair.
Another couple of questions. I'm going to combine two questions at once in the interest of time. So a question from Ashley, who's asking, what is the best time to go out and recruit for apprenticeships to start in their business? Because I know there's always a lot of conversation about what fits into which timetable. So what's the best time to go out? And then the question from Nicola, who says, what percentage of your tech hires are currently female? I know it's something Nicola and I were talking about the other day. So two questions there. Best time to go out and actually do your hiring, and what percentage of any of you recruiting to tech percentage of those hires are currently female?
So I guess just in terms of for us, because all of our apprenticeship programs are level 6, we decided to go out around the UCAS application deadlines. We opened in December. We are still open for applications, so we are open a little bit beyond that. But because they are degree apprenticeships, we felt like we should kind of go out a similar time of year as UCAS applications are being made. So it's a consideration for those students on top of their UCAS applications as well. And in terms of females, so I think, again, we're probably slightly above the industry average, which is great. So we saw around 22 or 23% of our offers going to females. So still, obviously, majority going to male applicants, but we did see a nice proportion of those roles going to females as well. But we are working to try and improve that year on year too.
Amelia, have you got any thoughts? When's the main push for your attraction campaigns?
Yeah, really similar. So at Siemens, we recruit higher, advanced and degree apprentices, and our campaign started in December and closes at the end of February. So that's the key time. But as I mentioned before, we open the fast tracks from August, because we know when you're certainly in year 13 after Christmas, you become very busy with exams. So we know that attraction time is more in the autumn term, and then we're hoping to do more year 12 engagement for this year to do talent pooling in advance. And then yes, and in terms of the percentage of females, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but it's similar to Vodafone. I think it's around about 23. My colleagues on the call might be saying something else, but yeah, it's certainly, as I said before, also it's much higher than the industry average, because we see that females do better through the recruitment process.
Yes, that's something that's come through on our data, is that that females do better when they apply. They get more to get through, but actually it's that applications in the first place. Kathryn, anything you'd like to add to that piece?
So we do encourage our business areas to go live with their vacancies, ideally before Christmas. And also to be live over National Apprenticeship Week, where there's a lot of buzz about apprenticeships. But actually we do run campaigns throughout the year, and we don't, if I'm being honest, we probably don't see that much difference in terms of the quality of applications that come through. So even if you are a bit late going out, you can still get some really quality candidates.
To hear. Question from Oliver. This is the subject we haven't got into yet. And well, we've talked about it actually, what's happening to those in school and actually the challenges they've been facing. Oliver Blomfield's asked a question about well-being, and just asking really what thoughts you have around supporting well-being of your apprentices that you're bringing through your organisations, either before they join or actually once they're on programme.
Yes,
yeah,
really, really
Siemens,
important. Oh, sorry, go on, Amelia.
sorry, just a short answer. So at Siemens, the apprentices have access to like a development program, and within that we've worked closely with Learning Campus, and within that there are lots of modules on mental health and well-being to support them through their journey. Sorry, Kathryn, you go.
Yes, yeah, and it's probably pretty similar. So working very much with our training providers about what they provide, but support through various different apps. So all of our colleagues get access to the Headspace app, to a Your Resilience program, you know, to confidential helpline as well, which is available to all colleagues. But I think it's really important that you understand what your training provider offers as well, because their coaches obviously have a really close relationship with the apprentices along with the line managers, and so they can perhaps spot where people might be struggling with their mental health and then direct them to what resources might be available.
Yes, similar to Vodafone. So we have the coaches with our learning providers there to support the apprentices going through the qualification, but obviously we have the buddy, so they have their buddy when they join, and they have their cohort who they have support from because they're all going through it at the same time. So they've not just got the support and well-being from the learning provider, from what we also provide as an employer, but yeah, from that kind of cohort side of things as well.
Thanks. I think we've got time for one more question. A question actually, and this is, I guess, a slightly specialist one. So Callum is from Robert Gordon University. So Callum is asking about actually, do any of you run programmes both north and south of the border? Because of course the structure in Scotland is different, when they're known as graduate apprenticeships. Yes, are any of you running sort of programmes in Scotland but also England? And are there actually any particular learnings you can get from running those different structures, or any challenges?
Yes, so we certainly operate in England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. So it definitely is challenging, because you need to understand what the different funding requirements are, the different language, as you pointed out there. You know, we're talking about modern apprenticeships or graduate apprenticeships versus the different levels in England. And so I think what we found is we have one website, our Lloyds Banking Group talent website. So if we're advertising degree apprentices in Scotland versus England, it's just being really clear about what the language is that you are using, so you're talking to the language of the particular nation.
Thanks, Kathryn. Anybody else doing apprentices under the devolved nations? For those that don't know, who are tuned in, it's different rules in devolved nations. It's a devolved issue. So whereas the levy might be is collected across the UK, the actual administration of apprentices is devolved. Anybody else got any thoughts on that?
Unfortunately, we don't at Vodafone, because they're based out of our head office in Newbury, or our group, our parent company in London. So they are all, unfortunately, all England-based apprenticeships.
And are you the same, Amelia? Are you England only?
England and Wales. Yeah.
Right. Cool. Okay. Well, that's out of time. It's 1 o'clock on my clock, so that's a really rich session there. Thanks very much, and lots of questions. So it's really good to hear all those insights. A quick final plug from me. It's our Apprentice Conference, which is running on the 23rd, 24th of February, where over 2 days we've got 12 hours of content you can dial into. So we're going to be delving into lots of the subjects that we've discussed in a lot more detail. So it's not too late to register for that. And Simon, were you saying we were going to we'll send an email out with the slides and everything, won't we, as a follow-up to this with the recording, etc.?
Yeah, perfect.
Great. So thanks very much. Thanks for your support, Simon, the guys at Connectr, and helping pull this together. Really thanks for your candid insights from a panelist, from Amelia, Kathryn, and Salma. And thanks for your input, Kate. I hope your camera gets fixed. I shouldn't say this, but if it's a Dell, when mine started doing that, my laptop lasted about another 24 hours. So hopefully it's not a problem like that. Fantastic. Well, great. Thanks very much. Great session. Really interesting. And as I said, we'll be sending out the recording with the slides, so you can recap, and also please do share it amongst your peers. Talk to you all soon. Thanks very much. Bye now.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.